In the USA, it's currently presidential election season, and by mentioning that fact alone, I've already ruined the comments. But in the spirit of the season, let's take a look at one of the Sam & Max Telltale episodes that happens to be about a presidential election. I mean, it's relevant.
I haven't really touched on Sam & Max too much before on this channel. I've briefly mentioned them on a couple of top 10s, and Max appears in my intro, but I've never actually sat down and talked about what makes Sam & Max so great. So today, we're going to take a little look. But first, how about a brief history of the duo? Sam & Max started as a comic created by Steve Purcell, about a stoic crime-fighting dog detective called Sam and his hyperactive lagomorph partner called Max. In their world, they are the freelance police, given cases by the faceless commissioner, often involving some strange or bizarre happenings. Now, Sam & Max has always had a very cynical tone. On the surface, it might look like a very childish concept, but a lot of the jokes are very dry with a lot of adult humour. Even the TV show they had, which was actually meant for kids, had some rather dark humour at times.
The prison showers. Gee, if these walls could talk.
I think it's best if they keep their mouths shut.
It's for kids.
After a while, Sam & Max was picked up by LucasArts, who made the classic point-and-click Sam & Max Hit the Road. And after LucasArts cancelled the second Sam & Max game in 2004, a fair number of employees from the company started up a little company you might know now as Telltale Games.
By the way, the year 2004 has been a running joke in Sam & Max ever since then.
Telltale managed to acquire the rights to Sam & Max to make episodic seasons of the games, starting in 2006 with what would become Sam & Max Season 1, also known as Sam & Max Save the World. This first season has an overarching plotline of a hypnosis conspiracy, and the episode I'm looking at today is slap bang in the middle of that arc.
Is it smart to review the middle section of a game? Probably not, but I'm doing it anyway. Can't stop me now.
The episode in question is called Abe Lincoln Must Die, but I'll probably just refer to it as Sam & Max 104 because that's easier. There are a few things that I'll be explaining throughout, because this is the middle of a season after all, but overall this episode is fairly accessible, and it's actually been free for years, believe it or not. So will I look at Sam & Max more extensively in the future? Yeah, absolutely. In time, I'll get around to Hit the Road, the full Telltale seasons, and maybe even the cartoon if you really want. Although for now, we're just going to stick with one episode.
But without further ado, Abe Lincoln Must Die.
The episode begins with a creepy voice coming from a cockroach and into a phone.
I will feast on your entrails and devour your soul.
For context, this is a bug. The bug records voices. And yes, that is a pun on police equipment. As it turns out, Sam & Max were accidentally pranking the commissioner by playing back the recording of an exorcism.
Happens to the best of us.
The commissioner then explains that they have a new case, and that their perp this week is none other than the president himself. Also, is there anything more American than this reaction?
And he's about to introduce mandatory gun registration.
Get the keys.
And so, the mystery begins. Why is the president acting strangely? What's going on, and how come Sam & Max can just turn up at the White House? Did nobody think to pat them down before they arrived? I suppose a lot of the questions in this world can be answered with, well, it's Sam & Max.
A lot of things here don't have a reason to be the way they are. They just are.
To start with, there's no way into the White House because the door is being blocked by Agent Superball, who actually becomes a recurring character for later episodes, but that's beside the point. Why is he called Superball? Well, he's a bouncer.
Oh, Super Bowl. I get it.
No matter what you try to say or do, Superball won't let you in to talk to the president, so you have to resort to drastic measures. And call the phone next to the White House. For some reason, Superball answers any call there. So, if you leave it on hold when you ring up, he will be by the phone when you return to the White House, and you can just walk in the front door.
Nobody in this universe is actually that smart. At all. It's just a thing.
So now we can literally waltz into the Oval Office and see the not George Bush president being a little bit strange.
Unless they're secretly sitting on stockpiles of pudding, and oh yes, we will find them. They've got nothing to be afraid of. So in conclusion, America, get your back up off the wall. Dance, come on, marzipan and good night.
Because this takes place in the middle of a hypnosis arc, Sam & Max aptly suspect that the president has been hypnotized. And the best way to solve this, as learned from previous episodes, is a sharp blow to the head.
I don't think that's an actual medical procedure, but I digress.
Now we have another puzzle, which is another agent guarding the president. For reference, this agent, called Chuckles, is actually a villain from the previous episode. It's not too relevant, but he is the bad guy here, and that's kinda all you need to know about him. So how do we get rid of this guy? Well, when you explore the Oval Office, you'll see a big room titled War, and when you try to enter this room, Chuckles throws you out. You can just go straight back in though. There aren't any fail states in Sam & Max. You can make as many mistakes and missteps as you like, and the game doesn't punish you for it at all. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Well, I'd say the Sam & Max Telltale series is very casual, so I think this works. It also creates this in-joke where nobody can really stop Sam & Max from doing anything.
Can we have your keycard?
Well, considering you already took it, I guess so.
Which is kind of funny. When you return to the Oval Office, a character called Whizzer has entered, who is a member of the Soda Poppers. These guys are recurring characters in Telltale Sam & Max, and they're basically the Jar Jar Binks of this universe. As in, they're annoying and kinda unfunny, but Sam & Max abuse them in nearly every episode regardless. For some reason, the president can't understand Governor Whizzer, and yes, he's a governor, and he needs someone to translate for him. And, of course, Sam & Max are great translators. So then you can translate what he says, and the president will believe anything you tell him. Whizzer is of course known for his namesake, whizzing. And yes, your first thought is probably right. And so you say that he wants a drink.
I ask you, how long can this epidemic continue?
What was that?
He said, "What's a guy gotta do to get a drink around here?"
After having a drink, Whizzer naturally has to whiz. And remember how we got kicked out before? Yep, we get him to think that the war room is the toilet. This gets Chuckles to remove Whizzer from the room by force. And Max uses this opportunity to decapitate the president with a boxing glove. Oh.
They just don't make these guys like they used to.
That's no guy, Max. It's a damned ugly puppet.
Ah, the drawstring in his back should have been our first clue.
Ooh, political commentary.
Chuckles returns and realises that Sam and Max have foiled his plan, and so Chuckles must initiate Plan B. What is Plan B? Well, it's the statue of Abraham Lincoln from his memorial brought to life to run in an emergency election unopposed. Because who would oppose the statue of Abraham Lincoln?
My fellow Americans, I am Abraham Lincoln.
The answer, of course, is Max.
Max, we're going to make you the next president of the United States.
Yes!
And this makes for quite a strange pairing for the presidential frontrunners. On the one hand, we have a former reality TV star who says crazy things and has no political experience whatsoever, but on the other hand, we have a well-known face from a previous presidency who is likely really corrupt.
It's a good thing Americans would never have to make that choice in real life.
The next segment of this episode is dedicated to tearing down Mr. Lincoln's presidential campaign, lest he enslaves the entire populace with hypnosis. And the way you do this, I find, is really funny. You see, this Lincoln statue is just a puppet with no real political experience, and so he reads off a cue card for all his responses. What Sam has to do is sneak in some less than ideal cards. For instance, when Lincoln is pressed about taxation, we can use this poster that says, "Gimme all you got."
How would you describe your tax plan?
Give me all you got.
All of these out-of-context cards, along with a scandal from one of Sam and Max's neighbours, result in nobody voting for poor old Stone Lincoln. So that's it, right? Foiled the plan? Saved the day? Nope. He throws a hissy fit and goes on a rampage throughout the city.
There's probably a political joke to be made here, but that's not my thing.
How do we stop this rampaging menace? For once, shooting him is the answer, but we're gonna need a bigger gun.
The bullets have no effect!
Namely, we need access to the war room. However, Super Bowl returns to guard yet another door. You see, the issue is there needs to be a war before the war room is open. And so, in order to progress, we actually need to start a war.
And Max has only been in presidency for about 10 minutes.
Anyway, remember Whizzer from earlier? We need him to go to war with his equally annoying brothers, but he won't do this unless we get something for him to tell the truth. Luckily, Bosco, the local convenience store owner, has some truth serum. He's also disguised as a Russian.
I am Vladimir Ilyevich Baskovursky, Russian proprietor of Workers' Glorious Warehouse of Inconvenience, no?
No!
Don't question it.
This truth serum is insanely expensive, so we get Bosco's convenience store registered as a historical landmark because his weenies are prehistoric artifacts.
Again, don't question it.
And in the end, it turns out that this truth serum is actually a bottle of vodka. This is one of the season's in-jokes, by the way. Bosco invents something that sounds amazing, but it turns out to be just an everyday object that can be used in an unconventional manner. So, after allocating him money for historical preservation of his weenies, he gives us the vodka.
And that might just be one of the strangest sentences I've ever said on this channel.
We can then give this vodka to Whizzer, who downs the entire bottle. This guy is hardcore. He drinks like a northerner. Like, he doesn't even know that it's vodka. He just downs it. I'm baffled. When he starts telling the truth to his brothers, it opens up some nasty reservations between them, and then...
Of course you realize this means war! War! War!
And then a musical number happens. I'm not gonna play it extensively because last time I did, I got a copyright claim from Telltale. And to clarify, I did resolve this claim, but it still happened and it was still really weird.
Well, let's not do that again.
This moment really caught me off guard when I first heard it. I mean, I was speechless, but let's move on. So yeah, War Room. We have access to rockets, but we need a beacon on Lincoln. Luckily, the local convenience store is considered a threat to national security.
Do I even need to say it?
Head over to the store, grab the beacon, toss it at Lincoln, hit the button and bada boom. Lincoln is toast.
Well, in the end he's ahead, but not in the polls.
And so that concludes Sam & Max 104. Yeah, it does end on a bit of a cliffhanger, but this is a mid-season hook, so maybe I'll get to the rest of season 1 in time. Overall, what do I think of this episode? It's pretty good. Nothing hugely impressive, but it's full of funny moments and it definitely gives a perfect example of what Sam & Max is about and how good it's capable of being. Why is this important? Well, I mentioned earlier that 104 is a free episode, and believe it or not, this was my first point and click ever.
I'm completely serious, by the way. I didn't start with the classics, I started with this.
And this is why I always recommend Sam & Max as a starter for the genre. This little episode got me hooked on point and clicks. I mean, honestly, King's Quest would have probably scared me away, but Sam & Max is welcoming and casual with some hilarious dialogue.
There's also some pretty great political humour as well. Some lines are especially hilarious 10 years later.
Post no bills. I'm surprised this sign survived the Clinton administration.
Wow, Sam. When I picked you for vice president, I didn't know you were such a politically correct bleeding heart liberal.
So yeah, if you're interested in point and clicks but don't know where to start, this little gem is what I recommend. There are links in the description for you because it is free.
Will I do more Sam & Max in the future? Absolutely, I'd love to, but for now, I bid you farewell. And if you're American, you've got some great choices ahead of you. God bless America.